Hey there, this is Jacob, and in this video I want to answer a question that I've been asked many times, and that is how I do props that have an animation, and with the animation the collision model also follows the mesh. So as you can see, the store is at the moment completely solid, but once I open it I can just walk through. And there's no collision trickery going on. So for example, you might think that I just disable the collision. That's in fact not true. If we just put in this little command here, you can see that there's a collision model. It's kind of hard to see, but that blue box around it, that is in fact the collision model. So I've done that for all these doors, and as you can see, there is a collision model that just follows the animation. Note that this collision model is kind of slightly lagging behind, so don't try and do anything fancy with this method, because for example, if you imagine having a vehicle that you fly around it, for example, excuse me, you wouldn't want to have like a ramp or something that opens up that you can walk down while you actually also fly around with the vehicle, because as you can see, it's kind of lagging behind, so it's not very accurate. But for a situation like this, it's perfect. So I already have my model here and the collision mesh in Blender as well. So this is just the regular stuff that you know, I hope, because yeah, again, this tutorial is kind of for people that already know what they're doing. So you would want to have a physics mesh and your normal reference mesh. And then also what you want to do is under the mesh properties, you want to set up mesh groups, vertex groups. So I have a right for the right door, and I also have a left for the left door. And then what you will also need, since in this model pretty much all the geometry is moving, so the whole door just consists of the left and the right part, and both parts are moving, you will have to have a little helper geometry brush that will be assigned to the base bone. Otherwise the base bone will be deleted, and the other bones which are parented to it will also stop working. This has caused me a lot of pain in the past, so just remember, when you have a model where everything's moving in your animation, to also include a little helper brush, or rather cube. So what you want to do is go to object mode and create a new armature. I like to scale it up just so I can see what I'm doing. If you go to the object properties under visibility, I think, no, it's viewport display, you can go to in front. That will make it so it's always visible, even though it's technically should be culled. What you then want to do is apply its scale. So this is super important, to apply its scale, otherwise the animation will be scaled down. Then go into edit mode and just duplicate that bone. I like to move it a little bit left and right, and also note that the origin of my reference model is right here. So I want to move this here as well, and also create the new origin at that location, so the origin points are the same. And then just go ahead and name this bone something like base, and this one should be our right bone, which is of course parented to the base bone, and this one should be the left bone, which is parented to the base bone as well. So now when you're moving the base bone, both bones should be moving along with it. Now you just go to object mode again, go to your reference mesh and create a armature modifier. And under here you want to select the armature you've just created. Do the same thing for your collision mesh. You want to have those vertex groups here as well. Note that you don't need the base bone vertex group because there is already geometry assigned to that bone in your reference model. So as you can see, I've separated this model into two sections as well. And then just go ahead and add the armature modifier here as well and apply the same armature. To make sure everything's working, go to pose mode and move the individual bones, and you should see that the corresponding parts are moving. Now to double check again, select the reference, and in here the little tiny cube should be assigned to your base bone. And from here on it's just the basics of creating a little animation. So just go ahead, and I've already created this door 128 open, and our first frame should be this location right here, so it should be closed. And then at our very last frame it should be opened, so I'm just moving this over, applying its location, same for the other side. And now we have a little animation of the door just opening up. And then you want to create a new animation. Just click that little duplicate button here and call it close. And now what you want to do is select all, I don't even know what they're called, these little markers. And then just click S for scale and -1. And then move it so it lines up with the frames. And now you will find that you have the same animation but in reverse. Obviously it doesn't matter what kind of animation it is. This is just the basic stuff. It would work the same without a collision model. Now that you've done that, make sure that you export the animations. So just go to export and click on door 128 close. Go over to your action editor and choose the open. And now also export the open. Note that you have to have the armature in question selected, either in object mode or pose mode. I don't know if edit mode works, but this is how you should do it. Just go to export and then export the animation. Obviously the physics and reference model should be exported as well. Heading over to your QC file. In here, this is what it should look like. Don't mind the little attachments, they don't matter. You have your basic setup, and then the only difference is that you will have two animations, one for open, one for close, or whatever you're applying this method to. And then this is the important part. You want to have collision joints, so the same as for ragdolls, and then reference the physics mesh, obviously. And if your mesh is concave, which mine is, if you can have a look at this side, for example, it consists of 3 cubes or 3 objects rather, and all of these are individual and are not connected in any ways, so you shouldn't remove duplicates. And as you can see, this whole structure obviously is concave. You want to put in concave per joint. You can then do some other stuff, but this is outside of what I'm covering here. You can then go ahead and compile this model. I just have the wrong Star Trek. And then just open up the QC file in question. Mine happens to be the 128A. And just compile it. And this should work. And just to verify this, I'm opening it up in this model viewer. So just go to Star Trek models. And in here I have the door 128A. In here you can see the model and also the little cube. This should be hidden. So for example, this door will always be on the floor. So this will be hidden inside the floor. And then you can go into sequence, and in here it should be the open and close sequence. Yeah, I can make it a little bit slower so you can see better. And under render you can tick the physics model, and as you can see, the physics model is moving along. One little side note, in Hammer the physics model will look wrong. So if you just open up your map that also has the model inside, this is taking forever. If you have a look at any of the doors that have moving collision models, they will look completely wrong, but don't worry, it will work in game. I hope this has helped you in any way. It's actually quite easy to set up once you know what you're doing, and it opens up a vast amount of new features that you can do, which is pretty interesting.